questions, and Idman and myself will help to field those questions. Huge thanks to Idman Abdurrahman, who's developed and curated these sessions with us. Idman is involved in community-led food growing projects in London, including Cordwainers Grow in East London. And she's also curating the upcoming Bloom series. So if you're not familiar with that, do check it out. I will periodically put some links in the chat, so hope that's not distracting. But yeah, for those of you who aren't aware of Bloom, it's an amazing initiative platforming Black nature practitioners across London. So yeah, looking forward to that later in the year also. So I think I've mentioned everything I need to, and I'm going to hand over to Idman. And just one last note that we are running tonight until 7:15. Thank you, Idman.
That's great. Thank you, Fiona, and Capital Growth for hosting this program. For all of you that joined our wonderful sessions last week, welcome back. And hello to all the new faces. My name is Idman Abdurrahman. I'm really excited to have put together this series for Capital Growth. During the pandemic, I feel like more people have started to acknowledge the important role of community gardens and urban food growing spaces, and the kind of the role they play when it comes to improving our health, well-being, protecting the environment, but also that the power that these spaces hold when it comes to addressing wider societal challenges, such as access to green spaces and food insecurity. The aim of this session really is to hopefully empower and inspire urban food growing groups and people that work in local green spaces by providing ideas and practical takeaways when it comes to engaging communities, shifting culture, and creating more welcoming environments for all. So the format of this session tonight is that you will hear from the panelists first, and then we will have some time for Q&A at the end. As Fiona said, we'll pick out some questions and throughout the session, and we'll read that out at the end. So yeah, please do use the chat box for that. Yeah, we've already heard from some incredible individuals and gardens who positively impact their community. And this evening we will be continuing this conversation with Kate, with Mila, and with Bradley. First up, we have Mila from Calthorpe Community Garden. I'm super excited to introduce Calthorpe Community Garden. It's an inner city community garden and a center that exists to improve the physical, emotional, well-being of those who live, work, and study in Camden and the surrounding areas. The garden supports children, young people, vulnerable groups in the community, and offers a range of creative well-being, horticultural, sporting activities for people to meet, take care of each other and the environment. So from the garden, we have Mila Campoy, who is the Food Bank Cafe Manager and Older People's Activity Coordinator. So thank you so much for joining us, Mila. So please, why don't you start off by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with Calthorpe throughout the years.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and hello, everybody. My name is Mila Campoy, and I work at Calthorpe Community Garden. I've been working at Calthorpe for 20 years, and when I first met the Calthorpe, I thought that it was an utopia. It was a fantastic space in central London, and I'm still very excited with the project. And I prepared a little bit of a presentation, and maybe sometimes pictures tell better the story. Let me see if I can show you some. Oh, sorry, I did it wrong. Okay. Okay, sorry. I'll take off something in here that I cannot get away. Okay, sorry, I'm going to do it. Okay, sorry, I'm going to do it. Well, when I'm trying to play around, I'm trying to introduce the beginning of how the Calthorpe was initiated. So it's a very one of the oldest community gardens, probably in London. There we are. And I don't know. Can you see? Sorry.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Sorry. No, I cannot see. There. So the garden was created 40 years ago, and a group of local people found themselves that they have a vacant piece of land. So from the beginning, there was a lot of consultation, planning. Everybody was together deciding what the garden was going to be used, and they ran a campaign, and they fought for the land with the to ask the council to use that piece of land, and finally they were successful. Originally it was going to be for 7 years, but after all these years we are still here. In 1992, the community created a community building, and it's a seagull building, and it was even the community helped out to put the building together. So in the Calfor project, we have different. Thank you. We don't only have food growing; we have different activities going on the Calfor, but food growing it was essential and probably at the heart of what we do from the beginning. Um, So we have different groups using the community, and everybody's engaged in food growing. So we have people from different backgrounds and 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 different abilities. During these 40 years, we have been trying to embrace the different changes. One of the more exciting activities that we are doing at the moment is that we have a closed loop. Our closed loop means that we have the food growing, and we use most of the vegetables in the kitchen. The kitchen waste go back to our different compost schemes. We fertilize the vegetables, and then the vegetables go back to the kitchen. A few years ago, we decided to open a community cafe. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we have to close the cafe, and we substitute this part of the closed loop with our food bank. This is our food growing area and our composting area. We have sometimes engaged different parts of the community, like students from the UCL, and you can see maybe on the left-hand side of the picture, a tower with hydroponics. And that's a way to engage people from maybe a technology background, or younger people that they are wanted to embrace new and more modern technologies. One of the most successful things that I think that we do is trying to work in partnership with different organizations. A few years ago, 12 years ago, we worked in partnership with Community by Design and Voluntary Matters. They were looking for somebody to organize horticultural therapy activities for a group of elderly people. And that meant to be only 10 sessions. And 12 years later, we have this group of people still coming every Friday. The layout of the activities is like we do 2 hours of vegetable growing, and then we harvest these vegetables and we cook in the kitchen a big lunch for everybody. We have in our books around 40 people from this group, and normally we have 20 people attending even during the winter time. It is really like a big party every Friday. It looks like Christmas is coming to our garden every Friday. The majority of the people, they are over 60. After all these years, they are reaching 80 years old. It's like being with your grandparents. or with a very close family. So we attract another people, younger people as well. You can see a few photos of the different activities that we do. Even we cook on the summertime in our pizza oven. We attract a lot of attention from different parts of the society, even from students that they are living in central London and they feel lonely and they join us in these activities. I believe that food is like a glue that they glue together different communities, different age groups, different backgrounds. And I think we all have the experience during the lockdown. We all were talking about food and recipes all the time. And another of the more recent partnership we did with Positive UK and YMCA and Food Change. And this partnership is working with people that they are living with HIV. And the purpose of this is making uh, these people to show them how to live healthier and to be more visible. And the attendants, they feel more confident after coming to the sessions. They feel more exposed to be in an open space full of people from different backgrounds. Many of these participants, they are now part of our voluntary sessions or our sessions in food growing. When the lockdown started, we decided to start a food bank. We were lucky enough to have some mm, to have some relationship with the Felix Project. The Felix Project is an organization that they take food from supermarket or farmers that they are about to expire in many cases, or they have excedents of products, and they distribute it to different community groups. So with these donations, we started to create food parcels delivery originally to the elderly people living around us that they were shielding in the houses. And we started with 13 or 14 people, and at the moment we have around 100. We top up these grocery bags with some of our vegetables from the garden. After a few months, we realized that the people were feeling a little bit lack of motivation to cook for themselves. So they were getting a little bit more unhealthier. So we decided to introduce 2 cooked meals a week. And again, we include vegetables coming from our garden. Many of the volunteers that we have, they were students from the local area or were professionals that they were furloughed. And and again, anybody that is in the local area, they were part of our uh, activities, whatever they were recipients from the food bank or people that they were volunteer for us. Another of the projects that we did during the lockdown was sending people seeds to the house. And I think we get inspired by the elderly people coming every Friday to our garden, and we were a little bit mortified that these people, they were going to be at home isolated and they were not going to have the activity of coming to the gardening with us every Friday. So we started sending different seeds, and every week we were giving them some tutorials of what to do with the seeds. And again, we start with a few people and we ended up sending 42 packets of envelopes of seeds a week. We create a WhatsApp group and we were completely overwhelmed with the response of the people growing at home, being completely resilient, using every pot or every carton of milk to grow the seeds that we were sending. The people were even taking sometimes soil from the local parks to trying to carry on growing the seeds. Um, at the end, people redesigned the gardens. There were people like in Conci flat accommodations, they create like a little bit of a space of growing outside the homes. As soon as the people could come back, They were very enthusiastic to come back to the garden and carry on sharing the growing spirit with us. The feedback was incredible. The people were sharing the seeds and the seedlings with the neighbors. There were grandparents doing gardening with the grandkids, and it was a very successful and very well. They were very inspirational for us. We never thought that they were going to take the growing so seriously. Um, some of the things that we do with the products that we grow in the garden, they are cooking workshops. We do quite a lot of preserving, and we started to do soap making. We use rosemary, and we make rosemary oil, and rosemary oil is a very good preservant for the soaps. We're trying to engage anybody that came to the garden with an idea, and I'm sorry that the presentation keep playing, but I think you almost can see that there are two of our volunteers making an antibacterial remedy for colds and flus. And that is another one of our users making some soap. We're trying to carry on doing gardening. We try to make sure that the people are safe when they're coming to the garden. And we're trying to work 2 meters apart. The people are still enthusiastic about sharing the knowledge, coming to learn when we are running courses with us. Um, and we are very passionate about what we do, but I do believe that food growing is something that is very primitive for all of us, and I think it's very therapeutic. And the fact that we are working with soil, working with water, and we are growing things that they are going to feed us is something that is very primitive but very beautiful. And doing this kind of activities together, I think they brought up this element of community, of social interaction. And I don't know, I think the people get a little bit healthier because they eat better and they are more prone to try the food that they grow. And then when you are doing food growing in a community, we always share recipes and we always share tips. We have done during the years quite a lot of making remedies from herbs and working with people from different nationalities. Everybody have a different tip on how to use different oils or different teas. So not only growing food, but growing herbs, I think they help all of us to get healthy, to get more knowledge. And on top of that, I think it's very therapeutic, and everybody go back home in a better mood when we are doing food growing together. And I'm sorry that that thing kept popping up on the middle of the presentation. But thank you very much. This is all for me, and I'm willing to answer your questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mila. That was really great. It's really nice to hear about the ways that you kind of build and nurture your relationship with the local community throughout the years. There's some lovely comments on the chat box, but I'll read them out to you at the end. Next up, we have Kate Shipp and Bradley Pritchard from Grow Lewisham. Just to give you a little bit of background, Kate Shipp is a teacher, an environmental activist. She created the Recycled House, a showcase for sustainable living, and was part of the Crystal Palace transition towards Palace Power Group. She was involved in Lewisham's mutual aid during the pandemic and is part of the food group, thinking about long-term solutions to future food shortages. As a member of XR Lewisham, she has given public talks about climate crisis and nonviolent direct action at community centers and local schools. Kate is a founding member of Grow Lewisham and has helped set up the Plot, a community growing space in Lewisham. Then we have Bradley Pritchard, who runs emotional well-being programs for children and young people in South London. And much of his work is based on using sport and outdoor activities to engage young people from different demographics. Bradley is a trustee of the community action charity Groundwork London, a member of the Kent FA Council, as well as a member of the Football Association Judicial Panel and Sports Resolution Panel of Arbitrators. So yeah, over to you guys.
Hello, everybody. Really nice to be here. Shall I think maybe if I just start talking a little bit about how, what we're about and what our aims are. It's quite funny. It's really interesting actually after following Miller in that, we are really early on in our development. So we've actually only been around for, what is it, Bradley, 7 months?
Yeah, if that, yeah.
Yeah, 6 or 7 months. We've only been on the land for that amount of time since last November. We kind of had a really, really strange beginnings because we were promised the land really a year before that, but because of lockdown, we were in this situation where, we had the ideas and we wanted to get on the land, but we actually had to wait a year. So during that time, I think with the pandemic, joining mutual aid groups, kind of really realizing the food resilience problem in the city and particularly really locally, the kind of project morphed a little bit so that it is so much, I suppose our main aim is just to help people provide food really for themselves. So so we have got this piece of land actually in Downham in Lewisham, and that is like an experiment. We're using that as like an experimental growing site, so we're trying out growing loads of different types of food, and the idea of the whole project is to, I suppose, grow food all over Lewisham, okay, and from that one hub to actually help people to set up their own gardens in their own neighbourhoods in a kind of hyper local way. Bradley.
Exactly. So it's kind of like an each one teach one sort of situation. Firstly, Mila, that was amazing. I could have actually just carried on listening to what you guys are doing at Calthorpe, and if anything, it kind of gives us, or especially me anyway, like and it just me because like Kate said, we're at like the beginning of something, and we're trying to create something. We're trying to use the land and trying to be as productive as possible. But where do we go with that? And with that we've got so many ideas, and like the enthusiasm from, I think we've got about 15 or so people as like the main group, who come up with ideas and try and think, okay, how can we be as experimental as possible? How can we have as big an impact as we can, especially in the first year. We're trying to, we had this bit of land that, still had plastic bottles strewn all over the place, that they were, it was just really quite sort of derelict, if or just unused. So we've had to try and clear that away and use our imagination more than anything to think of what we're going to create. And then like Kate said, it's also then about trying to go out and in different types of outreach and go into different housing estates or just people around and see how we can best help. Not necessarily from the perspective of us telling people what to do, but more so just being facilitators and just trying to see what people need and trying to adapt what we can offer. Because what we've found, especially right now, is we may not have all the answers, but we've we've got a lot of enthusiastic people who will rummage around and try and find the answer. So whether it's trying to contact someone, trying to network, trying to just see where we can get those answers, then I think that's where we are. And while we're doing that, we're trying to sow seeds and plant and trying to get somewhere even as close to what Mila's doing at Calthorpe. But so that's kind of, I guess, I don't know, Kate, have I already missed anything?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, I mean, certainly we have aspirations to do like loads of things you're doing there, Mila. It's such an amazing project. Yeah. I think, so one of the things that has been really helpful for us in terms of like having to wait for, you know, before we could actually get on the land is actually we made loads and loads of contacts. So our outreach really started before our growing started, because I know that that's kind of like the theme of the talk today. So, you know, we made contacts with the council, we made contacts with lots of local food growing groups and community gardens and food banks, and just loads of, I suppose, stakeholders in the food, not the food industry, but, you know, but in that area. So we kind of, before we even started growing, we got people, experts and people that we could draw upon for information and for best practice, you know. So for example, having, we had a meeting with Edible Bristol to talk about how they went about setting up gardens. We had meetings with, you know, there's a social supermarket in Downham, and they have this Grow to Give scheme on the allotment sites. So really, we found out about loads of things that were going on in the area before we really properly started actively, didn't we?
Yeah. Imogen in the chat actually made a good point about how we're actually engaging with local people. So a lot of us are within the area, sort of 5 or 10 minutes walk or cycle, and we're trying to be as engaging as we can in loads of different ways. You know, it could be really informal ways, just sort of shouting across the fence, that we're talking to neighbors who've seen a pile of wood chip being delivered, and they're asking, okay, so what's that all about? And, you know, at least starting there and going into other forms, for example, getting different materials like cardboard and stuff from the cafe at Beckenham Place Park, which is right across the road. Talking to local supermarkets to see if we can use any of their green waste and things like that. So just trying to engage people in that way. But then there's also, we are extremely keen, and I think it's so important to try and be as welcoming and as inclusive as possible. So it's not a case of, okay, we're creating the space and then we're going to try and do everything. It's okay, how can we bring everyone in? So that requires us to be active in that sense, you know, rather than waiting for people to come in. I think it's incumbent on us, you know, because we have the privilege of being able to use land. So let's try and engage and create that bit of that momentum. Sorry, Claudia said coffee waste from the cafe across the road. Yes, we get a lot of, like, yeah, coffee grounds as well. But yeah, so it's just trying to be as engaging as possible. And I don't know about everyone, but I think it's just, how do we do that? It's just being, I don't know how to kind of describe it. It's not a chore. It's just something that you just look at as, like, for us to be as engaging as possible. How do we do that? You know, and you can't be embarrassed about trying to engage people and trying to bring people on board, because because, like Mila said, I think you're talking about food growing. You said food growing is, well, it's primitive but beautiful, and that idea of the connecting different generations. So we want to share that. We want to share that with other people as well. So yeah, trying to be sort of unashamedly inclusive as possible. It does also help if you make the site as accessible for everyone as you can as well. You know, making things wheelchair accessible, or being aware of certain times of the year as well, and trying to make sure that everyone feels like this open door policy applies to them. I mean, I hope that sort of makes any sense.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, in our, like I say, we've got our central space, but we're also starting some like satellite or smaller projects in like a hyper local way. And I think like one of the keys is to make, you know, that other people own the project. So the people who live in the community own their project. We certainly don't want to go in and say, okay, so do it like this and do it like this, and tell everybody or set it all up for them so that it is, you know, so it's almost like our projects that there you go, you can get on with something that we've devised. For example, you know, kind of like I had an appointment, or I went to visit the food bank lately yesterday, and had a chat with the woman who set up a social supermarket, Kim. And it's really about, you know, I suppose getting everybody, just finding out who wants to grow some food first of all. Yeah. Okay. So are you interested in growing some food? And at that point, yeah, then we can talk to the people and ask what they want to grow. And then we can talk to them about where they want to grow it. You know, we've got a partnership with Lewisham Homes, which is fantastic. So we've got 2 estates like here. It's just loads of grassland everywhere. You know, it's nice, it's quite pretty, but actually Lewisham Homes are really happy for people to start doing these community projects. But I think, you know, in terms of engaging people and making sure that communities are involved, and of course sustain that involvement, because we don't want everyone to be like, yeah, this is really great for the first 3 weeks, and then nobody goes to water and everything dies. You know, it's really very much about you're setting up your own garden, and Grow Lewisham will supply volunteers to help you with what you want to do. We've also got at the plot, we're planning workshops so people can actually go there and learn the skills they might need, you know, carpentry or how to grow things. And of course at the plot we're growing like a lot of culturally appropriate food. So we've got a polytunnel, you know, Val's made a polytunnel so that we can grow Caribbean foods. And it's all about, you know, foods that you might not ordinarily be able to grow in your community. Yeah. But because we've actually got this almost like a showcase place where you can come and see, and we can show you how to build a polytunnel from nothing, or just stuff we found on the street mainly, wasn't it? Or, you know, we did, apart from some wood and things, but it's very much about, you don't need much, you know, we have got the volunteers that we can send in to help with any, you know, digging or any heavy work that you need. But at the end of the day, the people who live there are in control of the project. And I think that in itself means that people own the project, don't they? They're invested in it. So that's one of the ways, I suppose, that we would make sure the community is engaged, because it's not our project really. We're more facilitating it for them. That makes sense.
I mean, I don't know if you kind of need any more information, but I guess I could kind of talk about. So I initially, before I joined Grow Lewisham, I didn't I was just sort of doing back garden growing and things like that, and I wanted to reach out and try and do more, but I didn't know how to do it. You know, you just you walk past land and you see it and you don't know who owns it. Is it okay for you to just start growing on it? You know, what are the rules? Allotments, how do you get an allotment? A plot, I called so many different numbers and some didn't even go through. Some were saying on websites, you're like 4 to 6 months waiting list. So I straight away felt like I didn't have an in, you know, like where do you start? So I think that's a really big impediment for a lot of people, because you've got such great ideas, you've got enthusiasm, and then that first roadblock is quite a severe one, because well who do you call? Do you call the council? Who at the council? And so I think Grow Lewisham is extremely important in that sense, because it just breaks down the barrier straight away, or it just provides that it just helps to facilitate, and also it means that if someone has an idea, straight away they're going to have supporters. They're going to have people who will help try and create that, and also reach out to others who they think will help. So straight away, you haven't got to worry about, hopefully anyway, you haven't got to worry about the logistical issues or the and is it really bureaucratic? I don't know, but just those kind of impediments that stops that put people off growing. And then so that's kind of, I guess, my transition into Grow Lewisham.
Mm. And another thing that we were talking about last night, actually, Bradley, wasn't it, was the kind of mindset thing to it. I mean, what are there, 18 of us? We have got the marvelous Danielle, who's a horticulturalist, so she's got proper growing skills. But everybody is, Sheree also does permaculture, so we've got lots of people who know a bit, but the whole thing is that we're all learning, and I think even passing on that mindset to people. You don't have to be an expert, you can grow things without being an expert, and if there's something you really need to know, we can find that person, so there's no
sort of sharing the knowledge,
hierarchy in it. So we're all learning different things at the same time, and I think that's actually quite important in terms of shifting culture as well, that it's okay to not know about it, and
that's true,
and just find out, so that's one thing.
That's how very informal presentation. Sorry, Mila, we couldn't do the share screen or anything, but that's
That was great. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kate and Bradley. I really loved hearing about your vision of kind of growing food all over Lewisham. I think it's really clear that you set that right intention, from the start when it comes to implementing this kind of inclusive structure. It's like a system of support to encourage people to grow food, and obviously, the sharing of practice amongst everyone, and kind of breaking down so kind of hierarchical energy, which it's really important. And Bradley, you spoke a bit about kind of when going around and kind of finding out what people need kind of at the start of the project, and I think that's really important. And it reminds me of something that Mona said from May Project Gardens last week. She was talking about the importance of connecting with and having an idea of your community before actually creating a community space and garden, instead of doing it the other way around. And I feel like this makes it somewhat easier to kind of engage and involve with locals. They feel like, okay, you've thought of us, and I think that makes it a lot easier when it comes, for people to feel like a sense of ownership of the space as well. But should I just read some questions? I'll just babble away. Maybe Mila, can I read out some questions to you maybe first?
Yes, sure.
So first of all, a lot of lovely, beautiful comments about the garden, really inspiring. Imogen asks, so she would like to ask you what you think is the key thing to be able to attract kind of a diverse group of people to come and get involved in the garden.
I think when the garden started, the community, there was very diverse already. So maybe we from the beginning have that like a bonus. Everybody living around the King's Cross area, it was very diverse. And then we really welcome any new organization or an individual with an initiative. If anybody wants to come and they propose an idea and we think that is good, we always consider that our garden is like the back garden for all of those that they don't have a garden. So everything could go, but we don't only do food growing in our garden. So somebody can come, and if they decided to plant a flower bed because they wanted to attract bees, we say yes too. Last year, one of our users, she is Mexican, and she wanted to try the Three Sisters. So we say yes, and we create a Three Sisters bed. Another thing is just, I don't know, we are very interested in new ideas. Another thing that we did a few years ago is get in contact with a farmer. He grows ancestral grain, and he was very welcoming us to go to his farm and have a look at what he does and how he does it. So we decided to take a group of our community members and go and have a look. And I think to inspire people, all these things can go. And one of the things that I learned through the years, many of the ethnic minorities or people from another countries living in London, they are coming from agricultural backgrounds. So they are very familiar with food growing. So if you have a food growing space, I'm sure that they are going to be interested and they're going to propose to you that they would like to grow things, as Kate said, from the countries and they wanted to see those things growing. So we have people from Iran, from the Caribbean, from many different nationalities, and 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 I think it's one of these things like build it and they will come. I think the communities will come if they know that they are allowed to do a little bit what they would like to do, and everybody is very prone and happy to share seeds. I think for us, maybe natural came because we are in central London and we have those communities already next door to us. And the other thing is that we are very in central London, many people, maybe they go there to work, so they pass by, but they feel attracted to the garden and they come. Maybe it's the location, but we always have people from a very different, diverse and multicultural background. We are not afraid to work with organizations when we cannot reach certain members of the community to work with local schools, with local housing associations, with shelter accommodation for the elderly. So we have during the years go there to give them a hand on the gardens. I don't know, different methods, but always trying to go there, outreach. And if somebody crosses our gate with a proposition, we normally say yes.
That's beautiful. Forgot a comment here from Claudia, which is quite interesting. And she talks about how a lot of growing knowledge come from people who grew up in other countries, like you said, in cultures where people grew up with this kind of knowledge. She was wondering if any of the speakers or anyone else, maybe even if you can answer this on the chat box, that would be helpful, has similar experience with exchanging language skills with growing skills.
But during the years, for example, we're trying to do different projects, like putting names on the vegetables or the different plants, and write it in different languages.
Mm.
I don't know if this kind of initiatives answer the questions, and then luckily we have a big space, and sometimes we hire rooms to another organizations. So we were working with somebody with an organization called Refugee Connection. So they were bringing along already some of these people from the very mixed backgrounds. And the language barrier, during the years, we employ people with different nationalities. So we have a huge Bangladeshi population. We employ Bangladeshi people. I am from Spain, you might notice from my accent, but when I came to the project, there was a lot of Colombians because one of the person that originally set up the garden, she was from Colombia. So there was so it is a little bit like a Babel tower, our garden. There is always a lot of languages going on, but we try to promote that by having workers or volunteers from different nationalities. So if we have a problem, somebody can translate.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I have a question to the Grow Lewisham team from Joanna. She asked, how big is the land that you've been given? The land that you
So the land we've got at the moment as our kind of hub space, or the plot as we call it, is oh, it's quite hard. It's probably the size of maybe 6 regular allotment plots. I don't know how they measure it, but yeah, I mean, it's not massive, but there's also, you know, we're nudging the council to try and get them to give us a bit more of it. But I suppose the thing with our project is that the growing space will move away from there, if you know what I mean. You know, over time, we will have it everywhere. It will be everywhere.
Joanna says, is that the size of a football pitch? Maybe?
Well, Bradley, you'd be the expert
Bradley?
on that, Bradley. Size of a football pitch?
I was running on it. I didn't like measure it, but
Does it look about familiar for football?
yeah, no, it's smaller. It's smaller than it will probably be, I guess, a quarter of the size of a normal sized football pitch. I think, yeah. I'm trying to actually scroll through my messages to find out the exact meterage, because I think we've got it. We've put it in our thing somewhere. So when I find it, I'll put it in the chat box.
That would be great. Thank you. There's another question here from Claudia. She said, can you talk about how you work with local transition groups?
All right. Well, we haven't. I mean, I've been a member of Transition Group, and really we haven't worked with them. So, you know, it's the same as something like this, like sharing talks and sharing ideas, really, rather than physically working with them. A lot of our ideas, I suppose, come from best practice. You know, it's one of the things that we decided quite early on that we would use best practice. So, you know, some of the things that Transition Town doing are, you know, suitable for what we're doing. They have a thing called a patchwork farm, which, you know, it's kind of similar to what we're doing, I suppose, the idea that there might be lots of little growing spaces all over the place. And I think I said previously about Edible Bristol. They talk about how they basically just engage the community. So with the Transition Town and really all the other groups that we've learned from, yeah, we try and use the things that have worked for them.
Sorry, Kate, can we just quickly just explain what a transition town is?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Oh, right, okay. So Transition Town is it's a movement. It's been, oh gosh, it's been around for quite a long time, actually. And it's the idea that your town will become quite self-sufficient and almost like a closed loop. Yeah. There's one in Totnes in Devon. So basically, you know, you grow things for your community, or the waste would go to produce fuel, and everything is there within that area. So the transition is from the system that we have now and moving on to that system, that sustainable system. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Thank you for that. Back to Mila. Someone asked, if I can find it. So do you have any plans to write a book? Obviously you have this like wealth of knowledge and all these practices at Calthorpe. Yeah, to share this kind of knowledge with people.
Yes, we will love to. Funding is always something that came as an impediment, but the ideas, they are always there. We have a little bit of help now with social media, so we are hoping to be able to share our recipes. But yes, we will love to. It's like working with such a diverse community. It's like you really want to capture all these recipes and all this knowledge and share it with all of you. But we have in mind doing a cookbook. At the moment, for example, we are providing the free school meals for the kids in the area, and we pair that up with some football coaching, and we're trying to be giving the kids an healthy recipe and be as diverse on the recipes that we provide as we can. And the parents are asking us to write those recipes, so we will do it at the end. So all these things, when it's something successful, we wanted to share it even with more people, not just doing a leaflet, is not doing a book, but money is a little bit of an issue. But thank you for supporting us if we manage to have a book. You say that thing that you would love to buy it, we will let you know.
I think a lot of people in the chat will very much would very much buy this book.
And I think it's only that working with all people and from different backgrounds, sometimes you feel, you sense that all this knowledge is going to be lost on our past. Normally, we used to have this kind of, I don't know, chamomile tea that your mom. So when we did major remedies with herbs courses, the 10 attendants, they have so many new recipes that even the herbalist was completely astonished and wanted to write it down. And those things that normally we knew from our parents, from our grandparents, all of a sudden, in only one generation, all these things, all this knowledge had been cut down. We don't know it anymore. And it would be beautiful to write all these things for sure.
Yeah.
Right. She started a crowdfunder for that. With Calthorpe, what kind of support do you have from the council? I may ask.
We have a tiny support, and I think during the recent years, we used to have almost a big support, and then around 15 years ago, there was a financial crisis, so all that changed. I am quite optimistic, and I think that sometimes when you face a problem, I think sometimes it's a good opportunity to find a solution. And when there were the times that everybody was having everything for free, I think there is a moment that maybe you don't motivate yourself enough. So when we have that big cut, we went we lost, I think, 75% of our funding. And it was at a time that we needed to be creative. And I remember that one of the positive things of this crisis was we put a big banner outside our gates, and we say that we are facing a huge cut of funding. We are about to lose the garden if we don't find a solution. And the amount of people that came with ideas or with donations, it was overwhelming. So maybe sometimes it's a wake-up call. These projects, if we don't get the support, if we don't get the people engaged, they might disappear. So when some people really think that those things are important, I think there are people coming across and they find a solution or they have a contribution. And for us, it was important as well to thinking about and to consider what are we going to do now. So then we needed to start to consider ourselves, like how we are going to make money. We find solutions. We did, for example, transform the football pitch, and the local office workers, they're hiring the football pitch, and that is a way that we are making some money. Another trying to make money was the cafe. It was a hard work, but you try and you engage different people that maybe they wouldn't have been engaged before. We never thought of having a cafe, but having a cafe brought up people that they might don't want to be a gardener, they might don't have kids, they might don't have, but they can enjoy the garden having a coffee. And it was a way to be in contact with us and to collaborate and to be engaged in the garden and to use it. So to the question, how do we get the money? Being very creative, working very hard, and I don't know, sometimes we don't even know what are we going to do next, but it happens.
I mean, it sounds like you're doing beautifully. We have Francesca asked, she said such wonderful projects with collaboration and connection at the heart of what you are doing. Kate and Bradley, would Grow Lewisham be interested in setting up an umbrella consultancy?
Oh, consultancy. Well, I mean, I think that we have kind of referred to ourselves before as a bit like a umbrella organisation, because there's so much going on already and so many different things to link up within that. I don't know what do you think, Bradley, about a consultancy?
Well, yeah. Well, look,
share any experience or information that we've got.
But no, like you say, yeah, we do that already in the sense that we're there to listen to what people want, and then try and help direct in whatever way, if it's not something that we can help with. But yeah, I think in terms of like actually calcifying it or codifying it into an actual consultancy, probably not at the moment. I mean, we're very we're quite organic in the way we evolve, and it's quite a nice thing, because I think we then try to address the needs of those around us, rather than imposing the type of organization we're going to be. And also with that, we can then evolve depending on the skills that we have. I mean, one of the things that Imogen Slater put in was having a skills audit. So I'm actually actively trying to say, okay, what are the skills that we have as a group, and where are we lacking? And if so, how do we address that? So we're trying to just consistently self assess, and see how we can then help. And then maybe, yeah, I guess looking at it from a consultancy perspective, we'll help where we can,
Yeah,
certainly.
certainly. I mean, I think, yeah, Francis, if you want to get in touch, then we can like talk about our model, and scale it up or use it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a skills audit. I think that's really great, kind of that you like self-assess and kind of look at, what do people have, where are we lacking. I think that's great.
But that sort of, sorry, just jumping in, but like that in itself for me anyway, is quite an innovative thing to do a skills audit
For sure.
without any pressure, because or without any external influences, because it's the organization saying, okay, well, how do we stay on top of things? How do we continue to try and get better? To do that, you've got to be quite secure in yourselves to understand where you're lacking as much as where you're excelling, because you're comfortable, you're admitting to everyone that you haven't got all the bases covered. And as much as we'd like to, invite our friends in and make everything as friendly as possible, what do we actually need to do to be as impactful for other people? Because it's more about others than it is about us.
Yeah.
And it enables us to be a bit more targeted. So we need a carpenter, or we need,
Yeah.
that on our social media, we need this. Sorry, I just noticed Imogen's actually put a note in the chat about developing good practice guide based on our first 2 sites. So basically we are just starting some pilot schemes. Yeah, there's one going on in Sydenham, and we've got a few potential sites, and our idea is like we're having this pilot, and from that we will actually write down all the different steps, how who we got in touch with, how that worked out, so that we can kind of reflect on that, see what worked, see what didn't work, and from that we will make it this guide that hopefully if somebody else wants to make a new garden somewhere, the lead person will be able to follow those steps to see how to engage the local residents, and what to do first, what order to do things in. So that's something that we're actually working on at the moment.
Mark asked for either group, either of you, very interested to hear about funding. Do you guys have paid staff? Is it project or kind of permanent staff? How do you fund it? I know you guys have still have your fundraiser going, don't you, for the plot?
We do, yeah. So I mean, that's the funding we've got at the moment. I don't think we've got any more. Well, we're partners with Lewisham Homes, and I know that they get funding for some various products, but our idea is, if possible, do it for free, because we're not buying. We have a permaculture ethos, so we don't want to buy anything, and it's amazing what you can find on the streets that you can use to make a polytunnel, to build raised beds. Even our mulch we've got from our local park, there's a big pile in the local park, somebody with a horse, so we're getting our manure. So really, in terms of, obviously funding is really important, but we're not doing as much as you are at the moment, Miller. But I think hopefully as time goes on, certainly we'd like to do all those things. And I think we were saying that a lot of our money will probably be used to pay people to do workshops. So it's more about people than the stuff.
Yeah, kind of sharing knowledge.
I think, sorry, just going off Kate, we are in quite a privileged position because we're able to volunteer our time to create something.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is it's quite important for us to acknowledge that for us to create something, you know, you need to have the time and resources to do that. But then also we can't then start, which is why we've been tapering how we bring in volunteers, because what we can't ask others to do what we can do, you know. So it's okay, come in on a Thursday and Friday during the day, spend your whole day trying to build a compost bin, because it's not the same, you know. So we certainly want to get to a point where we do have the funds to actually pay people, or at least give people to reimburse people for their time, to acknowledge that, you know, we want the space is for you as well, but we're not expecting you to drop everything, you know, because everyone has financial commitments.
Yeah, and also, you know, we're not going to be exclusively a volunteer organisation. So if we do get some land where somebody can grow and sell their food, or grow and sell their products, then that's something that we would really like to do, you know, further down the line when we're a bit more organised, because actually horticulture is a great job. You know, if somebody has got a decent bit of land, why not? You know, we can start up apprenticeships and all this sort of thing, and that is something for the future. But that's certainly something we're intending in terms of, yeah, well, people making their living, or people earning money out of it, and people also thinking of that as a you know, possible job option, career option, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because
we do have, obviously, as Kate said, we are a little bit more established, and we have a few of us, we are paid staff, but we are blessed with a team of wonderful volunteers that they volunteer as well, and there is different ways of raising money. There is different needs on each project. However, I think that you can do a crowdfunding application, or you can sell preserves, or you can sell plants, or you can sell compost. And then I think for me, it's always easier to ask something for the project that I wouldn't ask for myself personally, but just ask the big people with a lot of money. And a few years ago, IKEA, they did a pop-up shop doing exactly what we are doing. They were promoting healthy living, healthy eating, food growing, composting, recycling, and they just did this pop-up only for a few days. So I went there and I was glad that the big people like IKEA is promoting what we little people are believing into. And I asked somebody, what are you going to do with all these things around here? And they said, we don't know, because the charity that normally would have allocated to give these things away, they just pull up on the last minute. So they just asked me, you have a truck tomorrow, you can say whatever you want to. So I did. So I think then if you create your own project and you believe that that is going to be beneficial for your community, just don't feel ashamed and ask. Sometimes we do raffles and then we ask the restaurants. We are very close to many restaurants. So we go to Exmouth Market and we ask Moro, and there are a lot of people that they really have a soft spot for the things that we do, and they will give you a free dinner, and then you do a raffle when you do a party. We do organize a lot of festivals, and on the festivals, we try to sell everything that we can, from food to our preserves. So there is different avenues, but obviously when you have a very long journey of a long 40 years of a project, at some point we need to address to pay you the staff. And also after this financial crisis, I think I am aware that I would love to create more employment, but we are at yeah, 40 years later, the things seem a little bit different.
Right, thank you so much. I would like to pass it over to Fiona. do you have any reflections?
Thanks, Idman. I'm really conscious of the time, and I know you want to wrap up soon, Idman, but I just a couple of reflections. I mean, firstly, I'm so kind of like heartened and warmed by the kind of spirit of support and collaboration that we're hearing from Kate and Bradley at Grow Lewisham and Mila at Calthorpe, and also in the chat and in the amongst all of you lovely audience. So I think that's really encouraging, and that feels really kind of validating after the months and the year that we've all been involved in, you know, food growing, and with that kind of the backdrop that we have had. And also I just wanted to say that I think it's been, and I think others in the room would echo this, I think this is kind of credit to Idman also for kind of putting tonight together and getting in touch with our inspiring guest speakers, but really useful tonight to hear from a new project that's kind of emerging and kind of working things out, and a very established project. So I'm really grateful for the kind of balance tonight of different, you know, the kind of different reflections and the different kind of experiences. And again, that just is a bit of an extension of the theme of learning from each other and kind of cooperation. So that's been amazing. And also just, I suppose I would have liked to have said a little bit more about Community Harvest, of which both Grow Lewisham and Calthorpe have been part of, and really just how we can continue with this momentum, not just this particular initiative. Obviously this is kind of work is going on up and down the country, but how we can continue kind of connecting with communities and kind of prioritizing more vulnerable people in communities, and look at the power of communities coming together through food growing. So just and lots of other kind of things to unpick around access to land, which, you know, Bradley and Kate and Mila have touched upon tonight, and protecting existing sites, and you know, more pressure on councils as well to help. But it's really encouraging to hear about Grow Lewisham and the support that you have from the housing team there at the council. So I wish both projects so much luck, and thank you, Idman, for putting tonight together. It's been really inspiring, and I'll just hand over just for the last word to you, Idman.
Thank you. I realized that we've just we're running out of time, but I'm going to be really quick and say just a big thank you to Kate, to Mila, to Bradley. Again, it's been incredible to hear about Calthorpe Community Garden and the huge community impact that you have, and yeah, to learn from your practices as well as the kind of an established garden, and from Grow Lewisham and your visions. And I can't wait to see how it continues and develops in the future. You really have the right spirit from the beginning. And I've learned a lot. I hope you guys have too. So big thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Please do share, do save the chat. And also, if you can, check out the links for Grow Lewisham and for Calthorpe, and donate or anything that you can. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone joining. Hope you have enjoyed the rest of your evening.
Thank you to everybody. And yes, we have an anaerobic digester, somebody asked.
Yes, I was gonna ask. It's a good last note. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.